Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all well today. I wanted to go through this article in the Times. It's written by Daniel Finkelstein, and I found it really, really interesting, actually, talking about uh, basically the fact that there is an acknowledgement in this article that there is a growing sense of English collectivism, right? Just genuine solidarity between the native Brits as something other and apart from the new arrivals who have been coming in, of course, over decades now. And I felt like it was worth going through. So he goes on to say that mass immigration was a reckless error, but encouraging white majority resentment as a response would be calamitous. Now, that's very interesting phrasing because, of course, let's first of all acknowledge that the white majority at this point certainly have a great deal to feel resentful about, of course, from the fact that we've been made second class citizens in our own country to the eradication of our culture at and the pushing of other foreign cultures, whether it's in the education system or all other such things, to the massive cover-ups that we've, of course, had with the rape gangs, and just innumerable crimes that would take history books and history books to, towards the end of the century, to actually begin to come to terms with the genuine amount of damage to the country that mass immigration has inflicted onto Britain. And so, yeah, there is a lot of resentment out there, but often resentment can be justified in many senses. But it's this part here: the response would be calamitous. Well, for who? Who would it be calamitous for? And then we begin to get into it. It says multi-ethnic societies are hard. I'm not saying they should be hard. To be quite honest, people's failure to live and let live baffles me. I'm just saying that they are hard. There are great advantages to pluralism. Of course, there are advantages to individuals like my parents, who can find safety or build a better life in the foreign land, but also to host nations, which benefit from different perspectives and from people who arrive with energy and imagination. No examples listed, but let's keep going. But nonetheless, maintaining harmony and stability turns out to be difficult. But that really is the point, isn't it? There was greater harmony and much greater stability before we had pluralism, right? Before we had pluralism. Now, of course, that's not me saying that England never had riots or we never had disagreements and we never had violence on the streets before. But we certainly didn't have it on this level. I mean, just every single day now, you can open up an article or find a piece of news about some illegal or some migrant who has stabbed a British child. And it doesn't have to be like this. It's entirely a choice. But he goes on to say that my concern is less with the numbers than the speed. Let us welcome people, but not huge and rapid movements that have allowed little or no time for integration. But the point is, right, you hear this sort of thing a lot. Well, if the numbers had come in a more managed way, if no, we don't want them, right? We don't want them. That's what this comes down to. And you can see here, there's still this, even though he can acknowledge that there's a problem, there is still this pig-headedness in just, well, we have to find a way to somehow make the diversity work. That this is simply a state of affairs which Britain is stuck with for the foreseeable future. But of course, as we know, there are many whole swathes of the population now who are more than happy to see mass deportations, who don't want this albatross around the neck of Britain and are inclined to change it. He says, but I hold fast nonetheless. My family has been safe here precisely because of the British culture. Right, but your family moved here, presumably, I've not looked into it, but presumably around the time of the Second World War, because that British culture was made up of British people. And so it is, your deference, Daniel, should be to the British people, right? Not their ideals, which are transient, but to their demographic stability in the country. And he goes on to say that later on in the article, well, we can't just expect all these people to leave. We absolutely can. We absolutely can, because the British should be sovereign in Britain. And if we are not happy with a load of minority groups that have brought far more disadvantages and advantages, then that's our prerogative to change it. He says that he goes on to point out as well that, well, when you look at things like BLM and its calls for decolonising museums and the curriculum and the demands for reparation, or rouse over anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, and fury over the way that the mainstream has ignored Muslim sensibilities over schooling in Gaza. Right, but if we don't redress the demographic settlement within Britain, it is just going to be that for all times and all places. You are never going to get a perfect metropolitan police force in which the black community are finally happy with it, especially seeing as they basically just want nothing to do with the institution. And so the institution continues to bend over backwards in order to somehow just placate them. And it's not going to manage it. The Muslims are entirely tribal to their own, and you have enormous, noticeable numbers of Zionists, in the United Kingdom who believe one thing for Israel and that Britain should live by another standard. And the more that time goes on, the more that the British people, the British community, are going to notice these things. And as we can see more and more by the day, the patience is wearing thin from every angle, whether it's on the radical left or on the radical right. You're seeing now that people are fed up with this system, this neoliberal system. It's dead, it's dying, it's over. It is a dead system walking, here in England at any rate. And it cannot be saved, and nor should it be saved. He goes on to say, the course of modern British politics in Britain, I fear, has vindicated these warnings. Amongst the most valuable political assets is victimhood, and most political disputes consist of groups arguing over who should legitimately be considered the most victimised. This has now attached itself to ethnic groups, and, as I say, he goes on to talk about how this has attached itself to the English as well. But the problem is, right, that all of the minoritarian communities are able to play this victim narrative because the British state cares about their nature as victimized minorities. If a minority group in Britain claims victimization, then it always has an ear of the institutions by which to claim it, by which to redress it. But the British state, as we know, is not interested in the claims of victimhood from the British community. But of course, it isn't within the British character, really, to be a victim. We have always had a stubborn strain of defiance within us. And even now, I just feel like the British people are acquitting themselves with a tremendous amount of fortitude, right? What they are doing is enduring. But all the time that we endure, we also remember, right? We remember the things that we have been forced to endure. And as we can see, the situation is not going to hold forever. I have, in particular, I have no idea what's in store when we get into the next decade, in the 2030s. But I'm anticipating a lot of volatility. And if this article is anything to go by, it's felt within the London circle as well, that they can feel that the temperament of the Brits has changed in a direction that they're not comfortable with. And, well, if the British establishment is not going to diffuse the tension with things such as mass deportations, inquiries, and justice for the grooming gangs, and the whole other slew of crimes against Britain, then we're just going to continue to see things going this way, aren't we?